Start your week smiling with your friends, Kathy Zant and Michelle Frechette. It's time to get ready for some weekly motivation with WP Motivate. Happy Thursday, Kathy.
It is indeed Thursday. Happy Thursday.
It is. How are you?
I am doing well. Yes, I am
Good.
well. It
I'm
is
well.
only, can I just say it's the end of July.
Yes.
I am in Texas and it is only 91 degrees and it's like 3 p.m. I just like it. So,
So here in Western New York, 91 degrees, we call a heat wave.
yeah, yeah. Here, I'm like, oh, it's only 91. It's not 101.
Yeah,
This is all
exactly.
right.
There
This
is
is
a huge difference between
A-okay.
91 and 101. This is true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a few weeks ago it was 101 about, and we were having our little heat wave. Now we have a cool wave and I am enjoying every minute of it. I mean, I'm still wearing
Nice.
shorts and t-shirt, but
Oh, yeah.
and the air conditioner is on. It was so funny. I was on this like call yesterday, not our call, but a different call. And the woman's like, "Oh, hold on a second. I need to go turn on the air conditioner." And I'm like, "Who turns it off?" Like, you have to go turn it on. She was in like
Right.
Portugal or something like that, and I guess they're having a heat wave, but she was like, "Oh yeah, I need to go turn on the air conditioner." I'm like, "Geez, what's it like to have it off?"
Seriously. Well, it just got dark here, so I think we're gonna get a storm, but all of a
Oh
sudden it was
wow.
like boom, oh no, sun's back. Who knows? It was very fast lived. Anyway, it's funny because you and I cross paths more than once, of course. We have our weekly chat here and we DM each other
Yeah.
and share memes and fun stuff on other social channels and that kind of thing. But we just talked yesterday as part of the
Yeah.
post status happiness hour, a new thing that I'm doing over there. And of course,
Yeah.
we talked last week. Last week when we talked was like literally I had been crying before we hit record because the cat knocked over the coffee and ruined so many things. And like I literally sat here recording with you with coffee dripping off my skirt into my slippers. So it's all cleaned up. Everything's happy now, except
And
I
now you've
have
got Jeff.
I do. And I have canned air. Did I tell you about the canned
And
air? The cat is terrified of
yeah.
it. I don't even have to
Yeah.
actually spray it. I just have to point it at her. So hopefully
Yeah.
this will
Nice.
be I don't have any coffee on my desk right now, so we'll just leave it that. Anyway, live and learn, right? Which is what we wanted to talk about today,
Live and learn.
which is
Yes.
learning. So um I will start by saying I don't believe in boredom. When
Yeah.
somebody says to me, I'm so bored, I think if you have an opportunity to be bored, you have an opportunity to learn or do, right? So I
Yeah.
never, and I will admit, before the dawning of the smartphone, if I had to sit and wait somewhere, I could be bored, right? I could be like, what else can I think about while I'm sitting in here? Like we all used to be in the bathroom and read the shampoo container, right? And the
Yeah.
aerosol,
Yeah.
because that's all we had within reach. And now we bring our phones in there for better or for worse. And like we always have something. So I don't care if it's literally like scrolling through TikTok. I have learned a lot on TikTok. I know I'm addicted
Yeah.
to TikTok, whatever. But like the Stellar event that we had, Stellar Spark last Friday, I learned from the speakers there. Like if you have time to be bored, you have time to learn something. And I don't mean like
Yes.
I'm gonna learn physics this afternoon. Like any of that kind of thing. Or how to like figure out a mortgage or any of those. But there's like opportunities. And if you have the mindset that if I have time to be bored, I have time to learn, you really do practice being a lifelong learner, which I think is important too, right? So I'm
Yeah,
55 years old
completely.
and I'm still learning shit. I mean, compost.
I'm older than you and I'm still learning shit. So it's just
Yeah.
this is life. Yeah, no, I I'm always going to be learning or trying to.
Yeah.
And it's not even necessarily like learning, although I do enjoy learning new things. I like learning new languages. I like learning new
Mhm.
ways of doing, designing web. I like creative learning too. I like trying new ways of doing things, innovating new hacking techniques, learning about new, hacking campaigns. Like that's one of the things I loved about security is that I was like, I'll never get bored. There's no way because
Yeah.
it's just a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Sometimes the red team is doing well and sometimes the blue team's doing well, but it's always a learning experience. And that's why I
Mhm.
loved going to DEF CON and learning about what people were learning, all the new techniques and new exploits, things like that. But I also like shifting perspective,
Mm.
like being in the same environment, but seeing it through a different belief system or
Mhm.
a different method of looking at things. So the
Mhm.
thing I've been playing with this week is the word value, and
Mm.
it's self-value, but it's also like looking at other things and feeling the value that's within them. And I had my mind blown this morning because I had to go to the gym. It was like workout day. It was supposed to be Tuesday, but my value in my checkbook went down because I had my car in the shop and lost $1,200 to that. But I value the repair that hopefully fixes a 2 year long problem. But I started just like on the way to the gym, I'm like looking at and then there was like road work happening. And I'm like, look at the value that the city is putting into this road that's been a pain in the butt. And
Yeah.
I started just like really shifting how I saw things. I love
Mhm.
playing with like that kind of stuff with reality and just like
Mhm.
how do I perceive things? Because you could
Yeah.
change your whole life just by changing how you perceive the
Mhm.
environment you're soaking in.
Have we talked about Stephen Covey's idea of the paradigm shift before? I don't know if we've mentioned that on this show. If we did, it was so long ago.
Yeah.
In his book Good to Great, Stephen Covey talks about the fact that he was on, I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me if I get any of the facts wrong, but he talks about like he was on a subway. And he's
Yeah.
on the subway and he's reading his paper and there's lots of people and there's these two kids that are running up and down the subway car. And people are
Yeah.
getting really irritated that these kids are running up and down the subway car, right? And you see all these people have grumpy looks, and the father of these two kids is just sitting there and not doing anything. And Covey's taking it all in and feeling a little annoyed at the kids, but wondering why the father's not doing anything. And he's looking at the father. The father looks up and their eyes lock. And Stephen Covey kind of looks at him. The guy says, I know I should control my kids, but we're on the way to the hospital because their mother just died, and I don't have the heart at this point in
Oh
time
gosh.
to kill their spirit because it's gonna die. It's gonna be killed in a little bit
Ugh.
anyway. And I just don't have it in me to make them stop right now because they're gonna be stopped in their tracks in a few minutes, in a half an hour, their whole world is gonna change. And Steven says, he went from annoyed with these kids and annoyed with the father in the split second to compassion for these kids and compassion for the father, and had this what he calls a paradigm shift in the way that you
Yeah.
understand things. And so
Yeah.
I often, having read that book, gosh, 20 years ago now, I
Mm.
often will put in my head when I'm super annoyed at something or I don't understand why somebody's acting the way they are. I think what could be happening in their life to
Yeah.
make them behave in this way. Now, sometimes they're
Yeah.
still just assholes at the end of the day, right? Like some people just are spreading
Sure.
negativity everywhere they go. But oftentimes, like when I think of when I'm grumpy, I'm a nice person, generally speaking. People like me. But if I'm grumpy and I'm grumpy to somebody, I just left a different impression of who I am with them. And so if
Yeah.
I can give other people the grace that I would want somebody to give to me in that
Yeah.
circumstance, then that whole idea of the paradigm shift. And what you said is actually fits right in there about what that paradigm shift
Yeah,
is.
yeah, completely. Yeah. And that's, I think, when you learn new skills,
Hmm.
it shifts your paradigm. It shifts
Yeah.
how you value yourself, right? Because if you
Hmm.
learn how to, like like the pride you feel when you first build that first WordPress website
Yeah.
all on your own and you answered all the questions, you looked everything up, you knew how to do everything and you figured it out and there's just some confidence. It shifts your paradigm so
Hmm.
that going through that process of like, okay, I'm going to do this big thing and
Yeah.
breaking yourself out of limiting beliefs of what you think is possible and moving into a place where more is possible and more
Hmm.
you can do more and you believe in yourself more, it shifts the entire paradigm, the entire experience of your life, because then it's like your reality shows up in a different way when you shift your
Yeah,
paradigm. It really
absolutely.
shows up in a different way. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and if you remember how you want people to treat you, I mean, like, yeah, the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, whatever. But we
yeah,
don't think about that a lot, right? We think about it when we read that golden, whatever, just a parable or whatever it's called. But to actually implement it when you are frustrated and when somebody is really irritating you and you can't,
sure,
like, I hate when a waitress calls me hun or sugar or whatever, right? Like, hey, hun, how are you doing today? Like, it is like nails on a chalkboard to me. But am I going to say to her, I don't want you to call me that? Of course not. Because, like, in the grander scheme of things, it's just such a little blip and it doesn't matter. But if I'm dating somebody and they continue to call me a pet name that I really don't like, I'm going to say something because there it matters and
sure,
it's affecting a
sure.
relationship. So, like all of that, it's all paradigm. It's all how you view the world and how you can change the way that you view the world based on information or thinking about what other information there might be.
Right. And the key is that I think sometimes when we get in frustrating situations or we get in limiting situations, it's super easy to just feel like down or
Yeah.
to feel like, well, this limit, there's no way out. Or to feel like, well, I'm painted in a corner and this is what it means. And we start
Yeah.
assigning meaning to an experience. And I think we have a lot more control over the thoughts we think, the
Yeah.
emotions that we feel. And I think our emotions come from the thoughts that we think.
Of
Like
course.
when I was sick a couple weeks ago, I was super sick. And I think we recorded early that week. And it was a good thing we did because I was just like down for the count. And I got so like just I one of the most depressive episodes just
Mm-hmm.
for one day. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? I didn't know I was
Yeah.
getting sick. My therapist then was like, oh, well, how'd you deal with, the whole COVID thing? Because there's a depressive element to it. And I'm like, oh, thank you for saying that because I actually set a reminder on my phone for like every 2 hours. And I was either supposed to meditate for 5 minutes and clear the thoughts or just tell myself if I couldn't get there to at least think better thoughts. And I still have the alarms going off every 2 hours on my phone. And now I'm just like, how are the thoughts? And
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm like not sick anymore, it's like, oh my gosh, the thoughts are better. I am on an
Yeah.
upswing. I am in a great place with the thoughts because I just like
Mm-hmm.
put that attention on, okay, I'm shifting this. I
Yeah.
am not going to stay in these like limiting thoughts. This is not me. This is not who I want to be. Who I want to be is like expansive. And so that's why I'm like giving myself these like little projects of things to work on of like,
Yeah.
let's consider the word value and how do I value myself and what do I value? What's important to me? And it's like really thinking through that. And it's just like, it's almost like spirit's like, holy crap, she's listening. Dump all the good stuff. you know? Come on, fire hose. Like, and
The
I'm just
window's
like, oh
open.
my gosh. She's listening for a change. Oh my gosh. Let's all give her everything. Give her everything. So it's been like good to just like make that set an intention of like, no, I'm going to no, I want more. I want to have
Yeah.
better, positive, even if my life itself doesn't like shift and change. I want to change how I
Hmm.
feel and how I think. And I
Yeah.
think that is, shifting that paradigm
Yep.
is can change your whole life. So if something really cool happens to me, it's because I'm thinking better thoughts. I'll
I
let you
like
know.
that. So the power of positive thinking, there is so much truth to that, right? And it's
Yeah.
more than just like when I drove a Beetle, everybody was I saw every other Beetle on the road, right? Like if you drive a Jeep, you see all the other Jeeps. When you were pregnant, you noticed every pregnant woman in the world, right? Those kinds of things. But I forgot where I was going with this exactly, but the idea of being, oh, right, the power of positive thinking is like I haven't done a vision board in a while, and I've actually been thinking for the last couple of weeks to do another vision board of the things that I want
Yeah.
in the next year of my life. And because I've had vision boards in the past where everything on that vision board came to pass. And somebody said, "Do you think it's just because like you put it on a board, it happens? Like, is it magic?" I'm like, "No, it's because you're constantly reminded of the things you want to work toward. You think positively about those things. You're looking for
Yes.
opportunities for those things to come into your life, and it's like you're positively thinking about them. So you are the one that makes them happen. There's very little
Yes.
magic to it. I mean, there is definitely finding those coincidences and opportunities and happenstances that will fit into those things that you might not have noticed if you weren't focusing and bringing those kinds of thoughts to mind. But like, yeah,
Right.
like I had a vacuum cleaner on my vision board once because I couldn't afford to buy a new vacuum cleaner and I needed a new vacuum cleaner. And by the end of that year, I had a new vacuum cleaner. It's like it wasn't
Yeah.
trying to change the world. I was just trying to clean the carpet. But
Yeah.
those are important things too, right? So making those things come to pass, which I just think it's important. And yes, and a lot
Yeah.
of that is rooted in value. Absolutely, 100%. Because when you don't value yourself, it's really hard to value anything else.
Right. Right. Oh, completely. Um, yeah, so I made a list at the beginning of the year of everything I wanted for 2024. And so I was watching some YouTube video and they said make a list of 111 things. I'm like, "God, that's a lot of things." I didn't
That is
get
a lot
that
of
far.
things.
But everything on that list, um, the only thing that really happened was I changed my strength and my physique more.
Hmm.
And it was because I gave it daily attention. I gave it
Yeah.
everything else was kind of like a hope, a
Hmm.
wish, and so I had like this list of like, win the lottery. Like I had my big list, I'm gonna upgrade the car, like all of these things that I
Yeah.
wanted to do. And the only thing, so I think the vision board is really important that you give it like daily, just give it daily attention, like the
Hmm.
visual of it, putting it
Yeah.
somewhere where you see it regularly. And it's not that I was like working out all the time or anything, but every day I thought about how much stronger I'm feeling and how much
Hmm.
better I feel in my body and how much I'm like sleeping at night for a while. I was not sleeping very
Yeah.
well, which was why I started wearing this thing to monitor my sleep. And then it's
Yeah.
just like, loser, you can't sleep. Yeah, I know. I suck.
Do you
And
want to hear
now
my,
it's like last night, I'm like, oh my God, I slept through the night for the first time in forever.
isn't that
So
nice?
also, yes,
You need to
yes,
sleep.
because
Sleep is
I,
important.
yes, critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's my vision board hack. Whether you make a physical board or you make a virtual board, because I've made
Hmm.
virtual boards before and like, okay, the
Yeah.
first one was actually an MS Paint, not gonna lie. Uh, Either take a picture of the board or save it as an image, use it as the backdrop on your computer, use it as your phone
Yeah.
open screen, because then you're seeing those things on the regular and
Yeah.
they're in your conscience. It's not like I made a board and it's in the back of a closet or it fell down behind the desk or I keep having to
Right.
move it because it's in the way. You don't want your vision board to be in the way. You want it to be in your life so that you can constantly reflect on the things that you're trying to
Yes.
manifest and bring to life it and bring to light in your life. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And keep your attention and your focus, I think is what draws these things to you is that you put attention and focus on
Hmm.
it. And there's such a war on our attention right now with,
Yeah.
short form videos like, oh, where did that 45 minutes
Hmm.
go? Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's such a drain and such a pull on our attention and our focus. So to
Yeah.
be able to take control and own that and put your attention and focus on the things that you want to have happen, I think is so
Hmm.
important. I think you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
I agree. This would be a great WordPress talk, even like a WordCamp talk about value and intention to get things done that you want. Like the first thing you said was like how excited you are when you did your first WordPress website. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Oh,
and then when
totally.
I knew and then when I knew to change the permalinks, I was even happier. And then when I remembered
Yeah.
to let the web index the site, I was even happier, right? Like all those things that
Yeah.
you don't know the first time you do it. And like incremental happiness is still happiness.
Yeah. Oh, I remember like going into the programming, like regular expressions or regex, whatever, however you pronounce it. It's like
Hmm.
GIF and GIF, whatever.
Yeah.
But regular expressions were so hard for me to understand. Like I
Mm.
didn't get them. And then one day it was just like, I I get it. Oh my God, I can write regular expressions. I know how to do this now. And it was just
Yeah.
like after beating my head against the wall, just like being able to like get it and understand it and like just conquer it.
Yeah.
It's very, very empowering.
Absolutely. And the more attention that you give to your own happiness, your own value, and valuing others around you, the less time and energy you have for disliking, hating, being annoyed, all of those things. And
Yeah.
the live and let live kind of comes into play a little bit more too. We did a I just published it today. With today's we said Thursday. Um for underrepresented in tech. We had Maya uh, Engel, how I can remember her last name, from Hostinger, and we had Miriam
Uh-huh.
Schwab from Elementor talking about head coverings and women who wear head coverings. Because when Miriam was married as a Jewish woman, she covered her hair, and
Hmm.
Nadia is Maya is Muslim and she wears a hijab. And it was making me think about like I like when I first learned people do those things because I'm in such a sheltered little town that I grew up in. I was fascinated. I wasn't ever like, oh, they shouldn't do that, right? But I was wondered about things like that. And I've learned over the years, of course. But to hear how many people hate others just because they cover their hair, I thought if you everything you've said today about value and that kind of thing, like why do you care? Like value
Yeah.
yourself, pay attention to the
Yeah.
things you need in life, and stop worrying about the fact that somebody has a scarf over their head. Like it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, right? So and I 100% value that people are willing to come and talk to us about those things that are deeply personal and
Mhm.
sometimes controversial. And I learn from every one of those interactions, which is just, I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome.
It really is.
I just always see women who are like totally covered and it's like 120 in Dubai or wherever they are. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I just like what I just wanted to like jump in a pool and it just, I don't know, it makes me feel hot.
Well, it's
But I
funny
know
because,
to many of them, that's like it's protective to them and they
yeah,
feel good doing that.
yeah.
I just can't do it.
Maya was saying that she was with some other women and it was really hot where they were, and their hair was all a mess because it was all sweaty and everything. And she was like, just looked fresh as a daisy because her hair was
Oh,
covered up.
really?
So she said it can
Nice.
actually be an advantage when you can get your hair up
Oh,
under it or all of those things that you wouldn't necessarily. And then
see?
Miriam said, though, wearing wigs is very hot. So that's why she would often wear a scarf instead of a wig because wigs are hair on top of hair. And if you add a scarf on
Yeah.
top of that, you may as well just like move to the Arctic because you're so hot, right? Kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's very
Interesting.
interesting. Very, very interesting. And I
Yeah.
was ever so grateful that we have people who are willing to share those experiences because it does take some vulnerability to talk about those things, right? Like people always
Yeah.
say to me, wow, I love that you're so vulnerable about whatever. I'm like, well, it's not like when I walk into a word camp. No, oh yeah, I roll into a word camp. It's not like you can't see that I'm disabled. It's not like anybody is surprised that I know that I'm fat. Like all of those things, right? Like it's you're not hiding anything. So there's
Yeah.
what is there to be vulnerable about? Like I just am who I am, but other people are, not willing to put themselves out in the same way or whatever. But I appreciate when women and men and everybody, right, is able to be their true self, show the vulnerability if they're comfortable doing that. And I think it's empowering when they are able to do that too. It's
Yeah.
empowering for me.
Definitely.
So anyway,
Yeah.
again, I meandered. We got away from our original topic because I just went with it, but
That's what we do here.
it is
Got
what
to
we
go
do.
with the motivation wherever it is, right?
I agree. Absolutely. We talked about motivation yesterday on the other podcast too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. But yeah, I think that value, motivation, paradigm, all of those things go hand in hand. If you really want to be a happy person, yes. I know people say money doesn't buy happiness, but boy, does it take care of the things that make you unhappy, right? So like
Yeah. Oh,
where I
not
was
having money is
right. Where I
don't
was
want to
10
do that.
years ago, 10 years ago, we were going through foreclosure. My husband was terrible at managing, but he was really good at hiding. So I didn't know the situations we were going through. My car got repossessed. We got foreclosed out of our home. I divorced that situation, moved
Mhm.
into a better mindset, and now I'm in a position where I own my home, I own my car, like I have no debt, like all of these things that are so
Yeah.
important. And I 100% recognize that's from a place of uh what's the word I want? I am well of privilege, that
Yeah.
there is definitely privilege and everybody can't just do and be. but it's because I did
Yeah, but
have the ability to shift those things, right? I mean, what I'm saying is like
and
there are places you
own the
can live
fact
in
that you
where,
worked for it. Yeah,
right,
you worked for it
exactly.
and I mean, you had to work the shift.
Yeah,
And it wasn't just like a physical out there work. It was a
right.
lot of mindset shift, I'm sure, that you had to go through in
Absolutely.
order to reclaiming your power and
Hmm.
whatnot. So you have the privilege of being in a country and in a place where that's easier, especially, there's other places where women can't get divorced and
Right. And
that,
they are
you know,
forced to cover their faces as opposed to choose to cover
yeah,
their faces.
exactly.
And they're
Exactly.
not
And
allowed to
so
drive a car. And, it was only 50 years ago here in the United States that women were finally allowed to have their own bank accounts and credit
right.
cards. Like in the early 70s, women could not have a bank account. They could not have a credit card. They could not have a mortgage. We couldn't own property even 50 years ago here in the States. And so the fact that we can now is it's amazing, right? And it gives us the more like much more ability to be independent, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
At least for me it
Yes.
is.
Very important
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Okay, I'll stop rambling now.
Good talk though.
But
Good talk.
it
Good
is good talk.
conversation.
Somebody texted me today and asked me, let me see, she said, what would you consider as the best day of your life? So I want you and I to think about that for next week, because I want next week for us to talk about, I can't narrow it down to just one, right? There are so many really good days. Like you have two children. If you said the birth of my daughter, but not of my son, that doesn't make sense, right? But there are some really amazing days in our lives. So next week, I want us both to come back with what we are maybe the top 3 to 5 days
Okay.
memories that we have that just like I think back on that, and that is something that brings me value and hope and happiness too. And if you're listening to this, we want you to think about that too and comment what are some of the happiest memories that you have that make a difference so that it's something that you can reflect back on when you need those days like Kathy had last week when she was dealing with COVID depression and things. And how often every 2 hours you had an alarm go off?
Every 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
What are the thoughts that every 2 hours you could put in your mind on those days when you just don't know how you're going to get through? Because those are the days that
yeah.
matter. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to my rambling.
Oh, I love it.
I love you.
I love you too.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.
This has been WP Motivate with Kathy Zant and Michelle Frechette. To learn more or to sponsor us, go to WPMotivate.com.